Let's do it. Hey everyone, this is Christopher Bartley here, and I am live with Shequita Lee. So, for those of you, this is probably your first time tuning in. This is the What's Your Story? Shequita, I think we're going to go with the live coaching. A live coaching experience, kind of, sort of. That's probably what it is. We're still kind of working it out. However, for those of you that are that's just tuning in, this is where we get an opportunity to connect with individuals. Most times, they are all entrepreneurs, where they share their founder story or their purpose story. And what they're doing is they're going through a 7 plot point formula to just really share and to express the experiences that they have kind of gone through, their journey in 7 simple steps, and then we retell it with some life principles at the end. Now, Shequita, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give me 1 second here. I want to make sure that we are live on Facebook, and I'm going to share. I'm going to go ahead and reshare our conversation. So give me 1 second here. Looks like we are, and yeah, and feel free to do so as well with your network. Okay, I think. Let's see here. Okay, should be up and running. Okay, there we go. Great. Now let me just get out of that right quick. Okay, so everyone, listen. Because of the tumultuous nature of this pandemic. Now, Shequita will agree with me with this because I'm about to read her bio, just tell you a little bit about who she is. Social media has been bananas. For a lot of social media marketers, that's really good. For a lot of us that are on the other end, it could feel overwhelming. But this is what this is. This is like the I don't know. I think this is kind of like maybe the golden era, perhaps, for a lot of people online who've been using Zoom and who've been facilitating virtual webinars and who've been being the SMM, the social media marketers, for years. And now a moment like this has occurred where things can kind of just coalesce and they can really be their fullest selves as in their expertise. So, okay, Shequita Lee, guys, she is a social media consultant, trainer, and a speaker. Now, she began using social media in 2009, and she was able to grow and enhance her team and her skills, or team skills ability, and be able to help give me 1 second to get it. Man, my eyesight, my goodness, I am butchering this. Have mercy. Shequita was able to grow and enhance her team skills and abilities with the help of social media. And from then onward, she has been eagerly indulged in helping, number one, training, number two, coaching entrepreneurs and small business owners on how to leverage their presence on social media. Everyone, I want you to welcome Shequita as she has so graciously, after a few reschedules, we finally have made it.
Yes,
we made it on the other side. So, Shequita, anything that you want to share before we just dive right into your storytelling formula for today?
No, I am super excited to be here, and I'm just ready to get started and figure out my.
Let's do it. Okay, so we are going to hop right into this thing. Okay, so for those of you, once again, this is probably new to you. What we're doing is we're going to take Shequita through her backstory, right? The who, what, when, where, why, how. It's kind of like a journalistic feel of just where she's starting in the story. It doesn't have to be from childhood, but it's going to be the point in the story that humanizes her and just gives us enough details that pushes us next to the catalyst, which is the call to adventure. Okay, so this is the moment or the person that's going to plant the seed or invite Shequita to do something that's related to being a founder. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to go start your own business, but it could be something that triggers her to eventually get to that point. Before she gets to that point, there's a big event. There's a life-changing moment. There's a milestone, whether positive or negative, that happens that pinches her to make another decision. And that decision will slingshot her into the midpoint, which is also termed the point of The point of no return. It is the it's the place where she's deeply committed, deeply motivated. There's no catalyst that pushes her, but it's her by herself that says, I'm intrinsically motivated to do the thing. And in this case, with the founder's story, the thing is to start her own business or to build something. So oftentimes it can be to build a thing, but there are other times when the deeply committed moment would be to just do something that could lead to her building the business eventually. But most times it's the midpoint. I'm all in. It's pulling the ripcord, usually from the 9 to 5 or from freelancing, whatever the case is. The point is, she gets to that moment. She says, I'm all in. And then a crisis hits. The crisis is the moment where she asks herself, did I really make the right decision? So it's usually an event, a situation that pushes back against her intrinsic motivation to do what she believes she's going to do, maybe for a season, for the rest of her life. But as founders, this is just what we do. It's not something that's seasonal. We are unemployable for a reason because we love building things. And next, after the crisis, there's the climax. The climax is the final showdown. It's the moment where she realizes she has everything that she needs to do what she's called to do, right? This comes, though, in different forms and fashions, okay? So we're going to be looking for that as well as we're extrapolating and putting together and figuring out Shequita's story with her. And then the last piece is the realization. It's the final realization. Climax is like the mini, but the realization is the mega. Yeah, we're going to go with that. And that's the acknowledgement of everything that has culminated up to this point. She may not have won the war, but she realizes that she is the winner and she's going to go back into the battle, back into the war again and keep fighting until she wins. What does that look like in real life? Well, oftentimes for those of us who have just started our company, or, we're in the early stages of our startup, we don't have an investor yet, or we haven't made tons of money just yet. However, we realize that we have the mindset, climax, realization. We have everything that's necessary for us to keep doing what we're doing to eventually get there. Realization can also look like having a happy family, being able to have a work-life balance, or maybe work-life integration. So anywho, that's the end. And then after all of that, she's going to give us 5 life lessons that she has pulled from her entire story. So, Shequita, the floor is yours, and I'm going to jump right in here into the backstory, and you can go ahead and just start sharing with us all of the details, just who you are, and where. Give us a scene, give us, give us some stuff that we can work with so that we can just know what is going to happen next in your call to adventure. And don't worry, I'm here to help you to sift that stuff out or to add more.
Yeah, because I might go in a whole nother direction. I need you to bring me back to realization.
I got you.
So, when you were going through everything and I thought about my backstory, you're like, you don't have to go all the way back. But one of the things that always pops into my mind is in high school, right? You're always asked, what do you want to be in life, right? I've never said I wanted to be an employee. Although we all from high school, from college, end up being employees, we never say we want to work for this, company. We may say we want to, do clothes or be a singer or something like that, but you don't ever say that you want to be an employee. So I said, the quintessential, I'm going to own my own business. At that time, I had no idea what I was going to do, right? But I knew I was going to be a business owner. The other story, big house, white picket fence or not, the kids, the dog, you say all of that. But at that time in high school, I knew I wanted to be a business owner. But of course, you go away to college, life happens, you get a job, because those are some of the things that you're always told. You got to go to college and you got to get a job, right? And then you start thinking along the lines, or not, of what the heck am I going to be doing in my business or in my life? But at that time, I was only concerned about, making sure that I was making the money that I needed to make to be able to pay the bills that I had to pay. But it still popped in my mind, like, what am I going to be doing? Because I don't want to be an employee for the rest of my life. I want to be the business owner that employs people. So that has always been there. But it just was the point of, what is it that you're going to do, right? Crazy part of this that probably is not a part of my backstory. But I always wanted to be a detective. Like I'm always figuring things out. So being able to figure things out and maneuver through things was kind of crazy. But in actuality, when we get to the end of my story, you'll understand that being a detective and closing the case is something that I actually do. But I'm not, a detective, but I'm a social media detective.
I like that. I like that.
So it's that is my backstory. It's a whole lot more to it that I can go into, but I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
Longer.
So, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going to massage the backstory just a little bit up until
Okay.
you're comfortable,
Yeah.
because there's some good stuff here. So I have here. So in high school, declare that you're going to be a business owner,
Mhm.
but college changes things a little. You adapt to go to college, get a job, pay bills mindset,
Mhm.
but not for long.
Yeah.
So, and I think this piece right here is what we're going to use to get you to the catalyst, because
Mhm.
something shifted between saying, okay, I'm get the degree, get the job,
Mhm.
and start working to pay bills. Something
Right.
shifts where it says, no, this is not what you were meant to do. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. This piece
Mhm.
right here is
Mhm.
probably going to be very important, not just for the catalyst, but perhaps some other pieces as well. So okay,
Yeah.
so there's this idea of kind of like a survival
Mhm. Mhm.
mindset, kind of just like having uh, uh, security,
Mhm.
consistency, and obviously, we know entrepreneurialism has nothing to do with security. It's taking a risk, right? Taking a risk,
Very much.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's larger than what we could have ever conceived. So here's what we're gonna do. Let's paint the picture a little bit about high school.
Mm.
Tell me about just and it could very well be in that one class at that moment, if you can remember maybe some colors or some, but I just want to know a little bit more about what high school was like that made you say, yeah, I'm going to be a business owner.
I think the reason why I popped out with saying that I was going to be a business owner is because you realize there comes a point in time where people follow the leader, and then those that are not following what the leader does. So at that time, you had people that were saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be a doctor, I'm gonna be a secretary, I'm gonna be a this, I'm gonna be a that." What? No, I'm not going to be any of those things. I am going to be a business owner. And that was my thought process. Like, I'm not trying to follow what anybody does. I don't
Mm,
want to be a doctor because I don't like a couple of things that they have to do, but I don't want to sit up here and say that's what I want to do. It was like I guess it was kind of the whole point where you ain't gonna tell me what to do. That could have been it too, like so knowing like as a business owner, I don't really have to be told to do anything, but just um, be excited and motivated to do it because this is my passion. This is what I love to do. And this is how I'm going to be paying my bills. So that could have been my mindset at the time. And I honestly have no idea what class it was. That maybe it was it was like a skills class because I took a lot of typing, data entry, in high school. Of course, you take the typical cooking class and sewing class, but those were classes of fun. But
mm,
typing and stuff like that is where you gained your skill and kind of figured out like either you liked typing or you didn't like typing.
mm. I remember the Mavis. They had Mavis Beacon when we were.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, Mavis. So I put here, as a youth, you typically went against the grain regarding traditional employment, but I don't think it was just that, right? Like the way that you're explaining this, would you have considered yourself not a contrarian, but just someone who, especially when you were younger, or how would you describe yourself in that? Because I don't think it was just about that class as much as it was you were different. You know,
Okay.
what was that kind of like?
Well, I grew up in the projects, so I was very different. I was not about to, fall into the norm of what everyone else did.
Mm,
Although I grew up in the projects, I didn't stay or hang in the projects. I stayed and hung in other areas, which was where my friends lived and or the other side of town where my family lived. So I didn't, that going against the grain was pretty much, ingrained because I grew up in the projects. So you kind of know growing up in the projects, you're either going to do as everyone else is doing or go the opposite way. So that would probably be why I automatically said, oh, I'm not going to, be working for somebody else, because I kind of knew at that point I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. That's why it popped into my brain of, hey, I want to own my own business, because that's not something that I saw growing up. I saw everyone going out to work or those that did not work at all. So
Mm,
that definitely was what it was for me. That was the starting point for me, seeing that there could be another side to this instead of doing everything that everybody else was doing.
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, so I'm gonna add that. I think that that's important. It's so funny, right? Because I always talk about, well, it doesn't have to extend from childhood, but it's so funny how a
It
lot of this stuff
does.
really does, right? It really does make a difference. So with this mindset where you, and I like where you said you grew up in the projects, but you didn't hang.
Mhm,
And I'm gonna put here in quotes, because for me the hanging isn't just like the physical, but just
mhm,
also the mental, where
mhm,
you
mhm,
know you I'm gonna push this even further to say that you know even though you had the mindset of you either have to be a leader or a follower, right, in this
mhm,
environment, because this really starts to shape
mhm.
who, if you're going to be a pushover, right,
Right,
if you're going to be the person doing the pushing,
right.
um you still had a particular mindset that even
Mhm,
though you were able to adopt these principles from your environment, you found a way to deploy them outside of it,
mhm,
if that makes sense.
mhm.
I don't know. I don't want to reach, but just from
Yeah.
what you said,
No.
it sounds as if that now extends to, as a youth, you typically went against the grain, right?
Mhm.
And not just with traditional employment. And I'm just going to put here, um, give me one second here. Not only with employment, but life choices. I think it's life
Yes.
choices in general. And so in high school, you declared that you were going to be a business owner, while
Mhm,
everyone else wanted to be a doctor,
mhm, mhm,
lawyer.
mhm. Yep, yep.
And college changes things a little bit, and you start to adopt that kind of survival,
Mhm,
security, stability mindset. Um, but I'm also going to put here that I'm going to keep this, that you always wanted to be a detective, and we're going to kind of keep that,
yeah.
put a pin in that. And so
Yeah.
let's talk about the catalyst, because perhaps maybe that has something to do with the catalyst. But yeah, so let's talk about when did things start to shift for you?
Things shifted. So I did um, go to college after high school, but that actually did not work out well for me. Well, I kind of, when I say I go went against the grain of things, I truly did. Back in high school, I was in multiple sports and I kind of did everything that a typical person in the project probably doesn't do. But once I graduated from high school, I was still kind of waiting around for financial aid to like really kick in. And I had a friend who was accepted into college. She had her dorm room and the whole nine. I did not have my dorm room. My financial aid hadn't kicked in. So you know what I did? I went down there and I stayed in her dorm room, waiting for financial aid to kick in.
Mm.
I went, totally on faith that financial aid was going to kick in and I was going to get a dorm room. And it actually did kick in. And I actually got into the better dorm room, which was way, way better. I went to Delaware State College, and they had the better dorm room. Of course, food was food, but just cleaner and larger. I didn't have any roommates, so I had the whole room to myself. And then we got the call that my grandma was not going to be well, so I kind of took a break from college and came back home to Connecticut, and did that because she passed away. And then it was my mom was like, well, she was nervous for me being in college in Delaware. We lived in Connecticut, just moms being moms, just worrying and like financial aid. I got to do a room. I'm good. I need to do this college life, right? Like, let me do the college life. But she really was like against it. So when I did end up returning to college, it was after I had gotten married and had two kids. And from there, it was the game plan for me to go back to college and take an accelerated course, which meant that it was one night a week, year round. The only days off that we had were just the major holidays. But it was year round and it was accelerated. So that meant if you signed up for it, you were going to be dedicated to getting through your degree program with everything being condensed. And I was dedicated to it because once I decided that I was going to go back to college, I knew I was leaving the state of Connecticut, right? Because at some point in time, you have to kind of break out of the norm to find something new, right? We can keep going around the wheel, and the wheel of a circle, but we still stay stuck, right? Because we haven't gone outside of the norm. We haven't experienced something new. And I wanted to experience something new. And I just felt like getting my degree and moving out of state would be best for me. And that I decided to think a little bit harder, like, oh yeah, okay, we'll get the degree. You can leave and then things will be different. You start all over. You're a newbie and you get to get like a fresh mindset, right? You're away from everything that you know. And I was prepared to be away from everything that I know in order to get to what is now the bigger picture for me, It took me doing that, which is for some people, they never do that. Like, I can't believe you moved away from everything you know. You can still go back and visit. It's not like the road is burned. You can still visit. You could call, it's not hard, but sometimes people get stuck into a certain pattern where they think they have to stay at a certain point, and you really don't.
That's good. Okay. So I did miss a few details as I was kind of wrapping my head around what would your call to adventure be here. It sounds as if the catalyst was you choosing to move, to leave Connecticut and to start a new life, right? Now here's the interesting thing. You kind of in a sense already started that new life by having a family after having left college. But let me just get this timeline. Let me get this timeline right. And I want to also just go back to specify the kind of college, not the education, but the way that you had to get it because of having a family. So I want to pick that up because I know that I missed that piece. So, okay. So you experienced having your own dorm room. It was a better experience. I want to say was it a better experience than most freshmen?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Now, here's the interesting thing. With this better experience, having your own dorm room, having lived in the projects, how is this different from now you having, was this like your first time that you're able to have your own room, or how was there a contrast, or I don't know if there's a connection there, but I just want to know if there was probably some kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about
totally
that.
Different.
Touch on that. Just touch on that.
Yeah. It was totally different because in the projects, you get housing based on how many people are in the house, right? So I am the oldest of my mother's now 4 kids, but at the time it was 3 of us. So it was it was 3 kids in 1 bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, but it was 1 bedroom. My mom was in the other one. And at some point in time, they finally agreed to a transfer, but the transfer was only for a 3-bedroom. And I'm like, yo, I'm the oldest. I need to have my own room. Didn't happen. So I didn't experience that only room syndrome until I got to college. So that whole dorm experience was like a breath of fresh air to me because I had not been there. I was there at one point in time as a younger kid, but as an older person, I was like, yeah, this is beautiful. You don't have to worry about nobody. It's just you.
It's just you. And then your grandmother falls ill, and then you had to leave that experience and you had to move back home.
Yeah.
How was that? How did that feel when you had to almost restart, and moving back? What was that like?
I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. It was like you were, think about it as a kid, you know, you get to go outside and then your mom be like, no, you gotta come back in the house. Like, what? Outside is waiting for me. And that's how I felt. I felt like outside was waiting for me. Like college life was waiting for me. And you're pulling me back. Like, what is wrong with you? It wasn't a good feeling. I was mad.
Wow. Wow, that right there. I'm gonna put here. I said felt dejected. No, I want you to say what did I felt blank, and I put here outside was waiting for me. Ah, that is such such a powerful statement.
I was
What did you
pissed.
feel?
I was pissed. I was pissed. Like, what do you mean? Like, I really was not a happy
Yes.
camper.
Yeah, yeah. That okay. Yeah. So you get snatched back. It's like seeing the glimpse of what life really could be, and then you get
Mhm,
pulled right back in
mhm.
to the old world, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, but then you had a family. So during this transition, and I know I'm missing some pieces here.
Mhm.
Because you have a family, and then you decide to go back to college, and then you get your degree. What kind of college experience was it this time? And so here it is where break that down for me as far as like maybe the living situation now versus what it was when you were able to go and you had your own dorm.
Mhm.
Now you're an adult, so you're
Mhm.
probably not living on campus. I'm just assuming,
No.
but you're going to break this down for me.
Mhm.
What was that like now that you decided, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish?
It was definitely a thought process, you know, because you think about it, you are a parent of children and you are also working full time. So if you don't know how to manage your time and you don't know how to have so many things on your plate to be able to make sure everything rolls smoothly, it's not going to work out well for you. I can manage my time well. I know how to not necessarily delegate, but know how to just keep everything flowing. And it was a process because you have to think about the time that you're going to take away from your family, you know, and the time that it's going to take you to study. And then because of the program, it was an accelerated program. So that meant more. Plus, we had to have a study group where we met. That was a requirement. We had to meet. It was not, um, a suggestion. It was actually a requirement of the program. So it was a definitely a big thing, and of course you had to make sure that you had support in doing that. You know, it was um, definitely an adjustment for me to decide to do it. When I did hear about it, it took a little bit of coaxing. It's like, girl, you can do this. And I'm like, but you think about it, we have so much free time after we get off of work. What are we doing with our free time?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna stop you right there because that's
Okay.
that's good. When you said it took a little bit of coaxing, that
Mhm.
right there is the catalyst or the pushing for you to get your degree and then to start moving out. Who
Mhm.
did the coaxing for you? Who did
Um,
that?
I have a good friend, Kimmy. She actually was in the program herself, working full time with a child as well. And she was telling me about it. I was like, I don't know if I can, you know what I mean? And it was like, well, you actually can. Like, again, what are you doing when you get off work? You go home, you cook dinner, you watch TV, you go to bed. Of course, you're helping the kids with the homework and all of that. You're doing life. Then you go to bed. So, how about taking some time and adding more to your plate so that you can get this thing accomplished that you've always wanted to do, which is to have your degree, to finish what you started, right?
Mm.
Most people, they start something and they don't finish it. So, to be able to finish what you started. So, she was my catalyst. She really
Mm.
was helping me
Yeah.
uh, push through it.
So good. That's so good. And so I'm going to put here that she, who also had a family, pushed you to go back to school versus staying in the work to pay bills cycle, right? You see how beautifully that connects to,
Mhm.
you know, here, right?
Yep.
College, how it changes things. And so because having tasted what you could have been, grandmother falls ill, you had to leave, and then you start your own family. And it's kind of like you're kind of in that cycle, the very cycle that kind of pushes you away from being the business owner. However, somebody shows up and tells you there's more,
Mhm.
just finish
Mhm.
what you started. So you go back to school. It's an accelerated program. It was a major adjustment. And then you did get the degree. and you
Mhm.
decided to move out of state and move away from everything you knew to
Mhm.
start a new life. Now, could this be the big event? If it's not, let me know and I'll remove it. But was the moving after getting the degree and saying, you know what, it's time for me to make a transition, a geographical transition? Could that be the big event that slingshots you to? Remember, the midpoint is the I'm going all in. I'm going to be the business owner that I said I wanted to be. If it's
Absolutely.
not, okay, because if it's not, that's fine, and we can dive into what
Mm-mm.
what that is.
Mm-mm. Yeah, the big event did help uh, to get me rolling. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about, so you got your degree. When you got your degree, what happened between getting the degree and moving out of state? Now you might have mentioned it before, but now that you've gotten it, you and Kimmy probably like, girl, you did it. What's good?
Mhm. Yeah.
You have that moment, and then it's like, okay, now what? What is going on in your mind? What bridged the gap between I finished school and now I'm just going to go ahead and leave Connecticut?
I started looking into buying a house. Right, the next thing I started looking into buying a house, and at the time I had been working for a law firm, and I'd been there for a while, a while. Um, and when I started looking into a house, of course, Connecticut cost of living is way more than what it would be in the southern states. My family is originally from the South, so it didn't. I knew I wanted to move to the South. I just didn't know where exactly. But after looking into a house for me and my kids and what mortgage prices would be, I'm like, what? I can get a whole mansion in the South for this, And I was like, huh. And that's kind of the push too. Like, you think about it, like you can get front yard, backyard, side yard, like what? For the price of certain mortgages for a 2 or 3 bedroom house or something like that. I'm like, oh no, 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 no. And I started looking um south, and I started looking south, and of course things are different because the cost of living is different, the pay raise, the pay amount, all of that makes a difference when you are moving. But that was like, I got my degree, I can move. I got my degree, I got my years of experience, and I can move. And that's what really started the ball rolling with me looking to move out of the state, move out of state. It was like all a process, but it was a rolling ball that kept rolling into the next thing.
Yeah.
So college, house, mansion in the South or something, mini mansion in the South.
Yeah.
That was all a process. Like, okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that definitely was the ball rolling for me. So
Mm, okay. Okay.
yeah.
So let's do this. So you get the degree, you're starting to look to buy a house in Connecticut because at this point, you already have a family. What
Mhm.
went through your mind? What made you say, okay, I've got a degree. We already have a living situation, but you know what? I want I want a house. What made you? What triggered that? The process of events, because getting a degree didn't necessarily, unless it did, but did it improve the quality of work or the salary at that time? Right. So
No.
so since it didn't, what made you say, okay, I got this piece of paper. The finances are the same. However, something clicked, something switched and said, no, you know, I want to improve my living condition. What, yeah, what filled that gap for you when you said degree house?
Well, before I got the degree, like when she was talking to me and saying, hey, if you get the degree, it could help you, blah, 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 looking for other employment. And at that time in my mind, I had already had some sort of indication that I wasn't going to be in Connecticut. So I had already thought about it. So it was in my mind. But when I had the degree and I said, well, you know what, let me look into seeing about a house, and that house. And then I started doing research in different states, like how much of a house can I get for this amount of money? And that was the it was part of the thought process, but I had already made the decision between her talking to me and me going ahead and doing the degree program, because your degree goes with you wherever. Your years of experience go with you wherever. So I said, okay, well, if I get the degree, I can go ahead and get a job down here, establish the income, and be able to get a bigger house, which
Mm.
is essentially what I wanted to do, because I grew up in the projects. I didn't necessarily want, and even though after I had my kids, I lived in apartments, I wanted them to experience what it's like to have a front yard or a backyard, and
Yeah.
to go outside and play without any type of problems, which where we lived at, they can do that, but just wanted the kids to have a different experience growing up, and being able to, you know, although my family is from the South, being going back, every summer and spending the summer in the South, we got to go outside all the time. But in the city, you don't really have like a backyard. You have playgrounds,
Yeah.
and I wanted them to have a backyard, us have barbecues, cookouts, the
I
quintessence
like that.
that you do. Instead of me rolling south to have a barbecue or a cookout, I want to be able to have a barbecue or cookout in my yard. So
Mm.
it's all a thought process. But it really did. Once I decided to get the degree, I had in my mind that I was moving out of state. I already
Mhm.
had it in my mind. Although I looked for a house, I still had it in my mind that I really did want to move out of state. So that probably probably helped me along the process too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. As soon as you said, because you're looking for, you wanted your kids to experience what it was
Mhm.
like to have a front and backyard. That right there is kind of the, not even kind of, that's the motivator, and
Mhm.
that's one of the things that, and I know that there are multiple things, but that when we, talk about the storytelling piece, when somebody is going to ask you, yeah, but why did you move? Like, was
Yeah.
somebody chasing you? Was,
Yeah.
you'd be like, I wanted my kid, like you
Yeah.
have like
Yeah.
the pieces
Exactly.
there. So awesome. So now
Exactly.
that you've moved,
Mhm.
you're starting a new life. What happened? What slingshotted you to say, okay, I want to start my own business?
Once I moved out of state, right, and I started working here in Virginia, I had a friend in Connecticut who, it was my first multi-level marketing company that I joined, where you put in money and you keep putting in money, and it's like, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. It was a pyramid scheme, at that time. I was like, I'm not gonna keep putting in my hard-earned money and I'm not getting anything from it. So
Yeah.
as time went on, I was like, of course, my ears were always perked out to hear what I could venture into, right, and how I could make a business of it. But what perked up to me was when I really got here, and I was like, okay, I told you I moved somewhere that it was a big change for me. So I knew absolutely none, not a soul in Virginia. Okay. My family's in Georgia. My family's in DC. I don't have family in Virginia. And because I'm not really a person that does what everybody thinks that they would do, I didn't move to Georgia. I didn't move to DC. I moved to Virginia. So I started networking, and I'm an avid book reader. So I started looking for book clubs online. I just wanted to join a book club, just to meet some people, join a book club. I spent most of my time in Virginia and my free time on the weekends in the library.
Mm.
I wanted to, join a book club. I got so much of the library that I noticed the librarian when I did join a book club. She's like, "Oh, I remember you coming to the library." I'm like, "And you are?" She's like, "The library." "Oh, the librarian." Like, "You take my books." Like, so I started networking that much that I was just making friends with people, unbeknownst to me, that they recognized me from the library. Um, and upon networking, I met a lady that invited me to one of her marketing events. And I was like, oh, well, that's pretty interesting. I can do that, and I ended up joining the company, which again was a marketing or multi-level marketing company. But the thing that I did differently was I made it my business. I don't
Mm,
I have no idea how I came to the decision, but I knew, like, even though I'm associated with this company, I have to make it my company and promote my company more than I'm promoting the multi-level marketing company, right? I have no idea how I got to that point, but I definitely did. You know, when I introduced myself, I introduced my business, right? If they asked, "Are you with this company?" Yes, I am. They are the host company. But that doesn't mean, and they're like, "Oh," like, and of course, I set myself up as a business, getting registered and stuff like that. So as I said, I'm an avid reader, so maybe one of the books that I read, was about business or growing your business. But I kind of just took it out upon myself to do something differently and not necessarily promote the host company, but promote my business, because you're going to get to know me. You don't get to know the host company. You're going to see me at these events or what have you. So that was the point. Just one, person, once I moved here, sharing their or two sharing their companies made me really realize that I need to do this for myself.
mm, okay. And when did you decide that social media marketing was like the the side of marketing that you wanted to be a part of? Because this is interesting. So you had one friend who introduced you to MLM, and you're like, I don't know about this. Like, but then it happened again. But between then, the first experience and the second one, you actually were proactively networking for yourself, which
Mhm,
I think is a huge piece right there. Like
mhm,
you did that for you. So now that you're introduced to it again, you
mhm,
say, hold on, wait a minute. I have the capacity, I have the ability to do this for myself, not just for the parent company,
mhm,
but for my own. So let me go ahead
mhm.
and do it for my own.
Right.
So you get to that point. When did you say, okay, I want to I want to do this, but I want to do this in social media? And now hold on, and let me back up here, because you saying it being about social media could very well be at the bottom here with realization. But what we
Mhm,
what we need to see is, what decision did you make that pushed you to a crisis that made you start to question whether or not you made the right decision. Um, so let me clarify. If the MLM piece, like starting your own, like promoting your own business, from that perspective is the thing, and then you say, "Oh wow, hold on." So I'm starting to do this thing for myself, but then I hit a crisis, which
mhm,
made me figure, wonder whether or not this is something that I really should be doing. Then okay, cool. However, if the midpoint really is the actual business, like ShequitaLee.com, like your business.
mhm.
Let me make sure I got that right. Shequita Lee Media. .com, right? Then let's start to shape your midpoint to transition from MLM to being a social media manager.
It's still a part of the midpoint.
Okay.
The midpoint for me was being new to Virginia. I didn't know people, right?
Mm,
Order for me to find these events to attend or to get people to know about my business, it required me to use social media, right? Because I've crashed Eventbrite events, okay? Going on Eventbrite, logging in to see what, some networking events that I can attend.
yeah.
But also, back then, business cards was huge, right? So I had to put myself out there as far as creating my social media accounts while still being in the business. So I had two. I was already on Twitter and Facebook, right? And of course, I told you I crashed Eventbrite events. So I logged into Eventbrite and I created an account on Eventbrite, right? So that I can get notifications when things came out. And of course, when I registered. So I had my Twitter, which was a personal Twitter, right? And then I had a business Twitter.
Mm,
Look me up. They can see Shequita Lee, business owner. I had a personal Facebook, but I also had a business page Facebook. So what I did was go through all of the social media apps, and I do mean all at that time, which was LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Eventbrite, even Pinterest. I had an account on every account.
Ooh.
Um, so of course, this business, when I would go to these meetings and meet people, right? Because like I said, I presented myself as the business owner, not as a member of the host company or anything like that. So when I did that, people started looking me up, right? And they started copying my business page on Facebook. Like, how did you do that? I was trying to, what, you keep your page pretty active. When do you get time? Because of course I'm a full-time employee and I'm running my business as well, making my way to these network events, some free, some paid, and doing vendor events. So in order for me to do all of that, I had to start putting myself out there more. So social media was the tool that I used, because I wouldn't know where to find out about all of these places and events and things of that sort by word of mouth, when Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, I'm at work, right? So I really utilize social media a lot. And at the particular time, the jobs that I had, they weren't, that much where they're standing over your shoulder. So, you're logging into the work computer to see, make sure my Facebook page got my post up there for the day, checking in with the groups to see if I can attend any groups or what have you. So I really, really, really use the social media platforms a lot. And for the most part, I got a lot of people that were asking me, how did you do that to your Facebook page? And that was the point of me starting my social media business, but not necessarily getting paid as a business owner, because you're teaching everybody. I'm like, oh, just do this. So it was like free services at that time. So of course people were taking advantage of it, but that was the start of it, because I was using those tools and making sure that I presented well, that people can find me when I would tag myself or my business in these posts. So that was that was the start. That was the midpoint start.
Okay. So people started to ask you how you're able to set up your social media pages so professionally, and what you started doing was you started helping them, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
when did it switch from you saying, okay, I'm going to not only help them, I'm going to make this a business. I'm going to make what I did to try to network. And that's so funny how it happens, right? You weren't even thinking of social media as the business. You were using that as a tool for
Mhm.
the business, but then you
Mhm.
realize the thing that I'm using as a tool for the business is a business model because people are
That's what it
drawn
was.
towards that
Yep.
versus the MLM, which is so ironic, right? You think that they're going to be drawn towards the company because of what you were doing, but they're drawn towards the process.
Mhm.
Crazy, right?
Mhm.
Funny
Mhm.
how life works. So you
Mhm.
had a knack for this thing. When did you say, okay, no, I think I'm. Now I don't know if you still are doing if you still have the MLM business, but okay. So what made you transition and say, "Mm-mm, I'm going to focus on this. There's a group of people who've been asking, and I could turn this thing into a profitable venture."
It's twofold the way that it came about. So, my mind, I started thinking along the lines like, if it gets to the point where I do this full time, this multi-level marketing company, the percentage that I have to pay out is not, to the company, and that I get to keep in my pocket. Nah, I'm gonna need some more money than that. So I started thinking along that lines, like, if I charge people for services, for helping them, set up a page, that could be one thing. But then the other thing is, when I did very well in the business, but at one point in time, I spent more time on the social media piece, that when I went to my tax professional tax time, I was saying, I ain't make no money. He was like, you might need to go ahead and let that go and focus
Mm,
on your social media business.
mm,
You're not making any money in your other business. And I'm like,
mm.
you got a point there.
You know what? That
You got
could
a point.
be. Would that be considered the crisis?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a pin there. We're gonna get to that. So I'm gonna put here. So people started to ask how you're able to set up your social media pages, and you decided to well, eventually decided to start charging people.
Mhm.
Um, help
Yep.
um, create social media profile. Did this also include like posts as well, or was this really just to develop their?
Just to develop their Facebook pages.
Okay, great. And then from there, um, you said that aha moment when what was that aha moment when you said um, you are going to well, you didn't say you're going to pursue this over everything
Mhm.
else. You were just adding that to. Is that correct? You're just adding that to
It was
what you were doing.
Yeah, it was added too, but once I really broke it down and said, well, hey, I'm not making as much money, if I were to do this full time, with these percentages that we have to that come out of the money that we get. Like this ain't enough for me to survive off of. So that was the aha moment right there. That was the
And
aha.
you're talking about survival through MLM, right? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes.
couldn't. Okay, gotcha. Um, I should say wasn't as profitable as social media management. And but you still didn't make the shift just yet. You still
Yeah.
had it. Okay, gotcha. Um, and decided to focus on some more, but still, um, you still had your full time,
Yes.
and you also okay, but still had full time and okay. Now there are two ways that I think we can probably do this. One is most times the midpoint is when you say social media all the way, quit everything else. Like that's typically the cinematic, And it was at that moment she realized that she was a social media, you know. Um, now, I don't want to force that. So, uh, but here is where I think I see how this is gonna pan out because at the crisis now, you said that your who was it again?
My tax
Your
professional.
Yes, your tax professional um, uh, says that your social media management business um, wasn't as profitable as you thought.
No. The multi-level marketing business wasn't as profitable as I thought. I
Oh,
wasn't
okay,
making money. I wasn't making money.
okay.
Yeah.
So let me back up. So so he tells you that the MLM wasn't as profitable. So where's the crisis? Is it because the social media management wasn't profitable either at the time, or just kind of
It
yeah?
hadn't kicked in really
Okay,
the extent that I wanted it to, but there's something that was in the middle, which was at the part of me not making money in my multi-level marketing company. I took a pivot and I started doing books. I became an author at the
okay,
interim of that before I really focused hard on social media. I still was doing social media, but I wasn't making money in social media. And I also not that much money. And I also wasn't making any money in the multi-level marketing because I wasn't focused on that. Like I still was helping people with social media, but then I started doing books. So I became an author in between that time frame.
okay,
So of course, which a lot of people may not know, but some projects that you become an author in, um, there's a point where you may need to pay into it.
mm,
And then there are some adventures that you can get in that you don't have to pay into it. But still, as an author, you still have to put money, into your book covers and or your editing or anything that you do at that point. So at that time, yeah, I was not making money in the multi-level marketing company. And my tax professional was like, so you might not, you might want to go ahead and let that go because, of course, the IRS, you're saying to them that you're a business owner, but you have no income coming in. So it was kind of like a aha moment at that particular point in time as well. So
Okay.
went from
Okay.
MLM making money to no money, stopping, so to speak, doing authorship at a point in time, and also social media as well.
Okay. So I'm gonna. Okay. This is good. So confirm that MLM wasn't and I shouldn't say it wasn't as profitable, right?
Mhm. As previous years.
Because right, because you started focusing on social media management. However, the social media management wasn't generating much cash flow either.
Mhm.
I'm, I don't know if I need to add the authorship piece. It might be important, but I'm going to keep that out just for now
That's fine.
because I'm thinking of still like one of the deeply motivated part. So okay, so it seems like to me, your midpoint of deep motivation
Mhm.
is not switching over to social media as much as it might have been networking. You proactively getting out to learn or to connect with other people. I think
Mhm.
that might, I don't know, but I gotta yeah, we'll figure this out. But that could perhaps be it. Now traditionally the midpoint is, like I said, I'm gonna go all in on my business, but
Oh
life
no.
isn't like that. Life isn't
Yeah.
like that. Life is
Yeah.
not linear in such a way. So, and this is also a process that I'm learning as I'm doing,
Mhm.
every story where it's not as clear, clear cut as we would
Mhm.
like it to be, as
Right.
binary. So we might have to revamp
Mhm.
the perspective of what your midpoint actually looks like. So
Mhm.
at this point now, the crisis then, what would you say the crisis is? MLM isn't making money.
Mhm.
SMM isn't making as much money. Um, what did you ask yourself at this moment when you said, and I'm going to put here what the crisis question was, what did you ask yourself that made you wonder whether or not doing the social media thing was even worth it?
I asked myself at that time, was I qualified? Did I have as much knowledge and experience as I thought I did? Can I possibly do this full time? So I started doubting everything that I had already been doing, with the knowledge and the understanding of social media, what it was, how, just doubting how could this be my business if I'm not making any money? you know, I doubted everything. So that definitely was a crisis in my mind.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. And let me tell you why that's also important. That's important because you remember your declaration from your backstory?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a business owner. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're in a place where, MLM, as you are working, a full time, you've got the MLM, the multi-level marketing business set up.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, and then you transition to social media management. And so you're having these ventures of attempting to be, or, you are a business owner, but the businesses aren't making what they
Right.
should be making to be sustainable, which goes back to the question of, do I have what it takes to actually be a business owner? And I'm going
Right.
to actually add that that's probably, do I have
Mm-hmm.
what it takes to be a business owner? And when did you get so let's move to the climax here.
Mm-hmm.
When did you say to yourself, yeah, but what, or before we get to that point, because obviously the yeah is there, because I mean you're doing what you're doing right now, right? But what was your showdown? What was the final moment of, like, between, and in this case it could be you versus you, but maybe it was something else, where you had to face that thing and then come to the the realization that you've got what it takes.
Oh, you know, uh, I still, would go out networking or what have you. So I had an older gentleman ask me, "What year are you going to make the jump?" And I was like, "What?" Of course I know him, so I was okay with him asking me that. And I just threw out a year. I was like, 2020. He looked at me. He said, "You're just throwing out a year." I was like, "No, I'm not." But he said to me, and I appreciate him for this. at some point in time, you have to make the jump. You can't keep straddling the line. He was like, I know that you're probably doubting yourself. He said, but you know your stuff. And he's not even like a social media person. He sees me on social media, but he's not a social media person. But he was just like, at some point in time, you need to make that jump. And ever since our conversation, right? Because at that time we probably talked in 2018, possibly. I was like, I always remembered that, and I was like, dang, when am I gonna make that jump? Like what you're doing, but again, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I talk to myself, right? Not out loud to people. But I'm like, what girl, you know what you're doing. Like, when are you actually going to do it? Like, and I'll say this. The first time that I ever live streamed, right? I doubted everything, right? As everybody does. Like, I was like, oh, you're so boring, you're dead, like you don't have no life, like you have to like perk it up. People ain't gonna like to watch you. So I had to keep doing it until I finally got to the point where I was comfortable, right? So I knew that by me constantly talking to myself and gaining more knowledge about it, that eventually that I would set in stone the date that I was going to leave, and or because I go against the grain, just go ahead and be like deuces, So I know a lot of people set a date, set a plan, and all of that. And all in my mind, I did have a plan of when or how things would work out for me. But it just was me kind of having that conversation with myself after he pointed that out to me. Like, girl, you are straddling the line. Like, what you gonna do? When you gonna do it? Like, I know Mary J. Blige got her Brooke on the other side. I don't have a Brooke or anybody, ulterior person. I kind of just motivate myself, like, girl, you doubting yourself, like, your stuff, like, so when you gonna do it? And I even would write it down, like, and I kept making excuses. But it was a conversation with myself that and the gentleman that kind of set it in stone, like, okay, do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So when you had this conversation, eventually was it to make a plan to do it, or a timeline, or did you just eventually just say what happened there after you said, no, you got to do this. You have what it takes.
I started evaluating everything that I have going on. Like, I were to leave, how many clients do I have? How many clients do I need? So I started planning it in my mind. What do I need to survive? Like, what do I have coming in now? And is what I'm getting in business sufficient to cover the bills that I pay? So I started making the plan. And I really started weighing that option more so in 2020 during the pandemic. Like, if you're going to make a move, what do you have to do? Like, that self-evaluation of everything. That was what I did. I did write some things down, like kind of just what I was paying and what I needed, and really started calculator, pen in hand. Let's go. What you got?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Financial, life, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And how to make successful transition. This is good. And then realization. Where are we now?
The realization was, although I ran my mouth and told him back in 2018, 2020 was going to be the year, 2020 wasn't the year. I did just blurt it out at that time. But I still said, you know what? It's either now or never, because you have the clientele. You've already did the numbers in your mind. You did the numbers on calculator. You did the numbers in the paper. So you're either going to do it now and continue to grow your business, or you're going to continue to stay straddling the line. And I went ahead and pulled the trigger. Today makes 2 weeks that I have been away
Hey,
from.
hey,
Yes,
listen.
today makes 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Wow.
I just said, you know what? It's either now or never, and I know what I'm doing. I'm more confident than ever. My knowledge has grown a lot more, so I'm able to teach a lot more. And you know how you have your Facebook memories, right? Each each Facebook memory that I got for this year from last year were events that I had planned for 2020 pre the pandemic that
Wow.
I only ended up doing one last year, but the previous year in 2019, I pretty much was hosting a workshop all the time. And the thing that I realize is like if I'm hosting these live workshops, because I'm a teacher to heart, like I love to help people in person, right? Because I don't want you to. I look at people's expressions. So when I look at your expression, if you look confused, we're not going past to the next point because I want to make sure that you understand. So I love the live workshops. And I look back at that, and I hosted so many workshops where I had social media managers that were struggling to get past
Mm.
a certain point. And I'm like, if I'm good enough to host social media managers, that they leave confident enough that they're able to get through and make sure their clients' social media platforms are working well, then I know that I can do this, you know? So 2020 was going to be my year, all right. It really was. Like I had events planned, but COVID said, no, ma'am, no events,
No events, right?
no events. So, but yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, I went
you
ahead
know,
and did.
wow, there's so many ways to just unpack this because even in here, where the older gentleman asks you, that's like a mini catalyst too. But you know what? We're gonna go with this. So here's what we're gonna do, Shequita. You remember how you said that when we first started? I don't know if I'm gonna have enough, ma'am. Do you see how much writing we got? Okay, so
Yes.
so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through your story arc. Now I won't be able to see you while I'm doing this.
Okay.
So just give me a verbal cue and say, hold on, wait a minute, I missed something, or I got something incorrect. So
Okay.
there's that. And then when I'm done, and I like to do this because after going through the entire process, you then will you'll see the narrative, and then you'll be able to pull out the life lessons as
Okay.
we're talking. It's easier that way versus me asking you right now. So, all right, everyone, this is Shequita Lee's story. Y'all ready? Now, let's just. I think we did justice. I'm going to say this now before we actually start this thing, Shequita, because I remember, we had some trepidation of whether or not this will be able to happen, but this is great. So, listen, guys, Shequita Lee. So she grew up in the projects, and we're gonna give more context here. So I'm gonna say Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
So, and the reason why I'm gonna say that is because we also kind of want to just kind of give you a place of where in the projects, what state or
Right.
whatnot. So she grew up in Connecticut in the projects, but she didn't hang in the projects. And what do you mean by that? Well, she had the mindset of either being a leader or a follower, which was ingrained in that environment. But as a youth, she typically went against the grain, not only with traditional employment, but also in life choices. Okay,
Mhm.
so in high school, she declared that she was going to be a business owner while everyone else wanted to be a doctor, wanted to be a lawyer, wanted to be a nurse. She always had this, and we didn't get to this piece where you always wanted to be a detective, figuring things out, closing the case. So don't worry, we might be able to get to that piece. But the reason why we're setting it up this way, guys, is because for Shequita, she, you know how they say, you can take someone out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of them.
Mhm.
That's not the case for Shequita,
Mhm.
y'all. She was born with a different mindset. Now, I'm not saying that there are exceptions to the rule and other people. No, but what I am saying, or what
Yeah.
she is saying, is that there was just something wired in her differently from when she was a young person, where
Right.
she realized this is where I am, but this is not where I want to stay.
Right.
Now, this is interesting because things started to change the thinking when she got to college and when she finished. And we're going to get to her college age, guys, or her college years. But college changes that thinking a little bit as she adopts the go to college, get a job, and pay bills mindset. So
Mhm.
there's this idea of survival, security, and stability that starts to take hold of her, which is really rubbing against the business owner entrepreneurial declaration that she has.
Right.
She won't see this until a little bit later, guys, but this is the backstory, okay? Now, why is this important? Because when she does go to college, Delaware State College to be exact, she was waiting for financial aid to kick in, and in faith, it did. And when it did happen, she with her friend, because and this is important because she was staying with a friend during that time while she was waiting for her own financial aid to get active. And when it did, she experienced having her own dorm room better than the room that she was rooming with her friend. It was a better experience than most freshmen. And that's
Mm.
important because this contrast to the 3 kids in the bedroom experience she had when she was living in the projects. She never had a room of her own. So now
Mhm.
she's moved to college. She has this amazing, for all intents and purposes, luxury 1 bed experience.
Yes.
But then her grandmother falls ill and she has to leave. And she moves back home. And there is this deep indignation, guys. She's angry. She's angry because she parallels it to having been able to play outside, and then your mom calls you back in, and what Shequita says is that outside was waiting for her.
Mhm.
College was waiting for her. The opportunity to do things differently was waiting for her, but it was snatched, and she gets drawn right back in, guys, to where she was leaving, where she left in Connecticut. Well, this is interesting because at this time, Shequita begins to she has a family, and she's married. She now has 2 kids, and it almost seems as if she's kind of back into the backstory of, listen, I just need to work, survive, take care of
Mhm.
my family, and that'll be that. The catalyst, guys, the call to adventure is her friend Kimmy, who also had a family, so there's really no excuse. Pushed her to go back to school versus staying in the work to pay bills cycle. So she went back to college after being married with 2 kids, but she had a different experience because it was an accelerated program at this time. Wasn't no luxury at this point. Like it's totally different, right? And at this point, it was really just to get the education. So it was a major adjustment.
Mhm.
But big event, guys, she got the degree and she started looking into buying a bigger house in Connecticut. Well, why is that? Why would she do that, Chris? Is she beside herself? No, it's because she wanted her kids, her own kids, to experience what it was like to have a front yard and a backyard and a barbecue and a cookout, not just in the stoop or in the front, but in their own place, at their own place. She wanted them to have a different experience from what she had when she lived in the projects. And so she realized it was more profitable, sorry, more affordable to live
Mhm.
down south. Eventually it was Virginia, to live down south. And so she moved out of state. She moved away from everything that she knew and she started a new life. Now, with this new life, you don't really know, or you got to start to know new people, right? And so she was introduced to a market multi-level marketing venture by a friend, but she realized, this isn't really for me. And so what she started to do, this is the midpoint, guys. She started to proactively network with others in Virginia, because she was still new in this state, and she started first in the library, and she connected with a lady who introduced her yet again to another MLM. But the difference here is that she took ownership of her own MLM business and started marketing and promoting for herself versus just the host or the parent business. So as you guys can start to see in this midpoint, it's not that she's now reacting to things, but she's taking the bulls by the horns. She is now the bull by the horns. She is now being the proactive individual. I'm going to network. I'm going to promote my business versus me being on somebody else's team and promoting theirs. So this is where the shift starts to happen. The shift isn't, I'm going to start a company. No, that's not the shift just yet. She's building everything by taking
Mhm.
the motivation that's necessary to do everything that's needed for her to eventually get to that point. It wouldn't have happened without these experiences. So
Mhm.
here's the key, guys. She started using social media in order to proactively network, especially since she was still working 9 to 5. So she still has full time, and she was working to promote the MLM business. She also, I love this. She also crashed Eventbrite events in order to network too. Guys, this is the all-in moment. Okay. So a lot of us may think that in our stories, the all-in moment has to be when you're deciding to leave your job, or no, for many entrepreneurs, that's not what it was. For her, it was, okay, I need to take ownership of my own. I am in Virginia. People need to know who I am. And they won't
Mhm.
know unless I tell them. And so for her, this is what the midpoint is. So people started to ask her how she was able to set up her social media pages so professionally. She had a knack for it. So what Shakita eventually did, she decided to start charging people to help to create their social media profiles. And here was the aha moment though, because she noticed that financially, MLM wasn't as profitable as social media management. And so she decided to focus on social media management more, but she still had the full time and she still had the MLM. But here's the crisis, y'all. Because as she's doing this, she's proactively starting to shift now, and she's spending more time with what she was for all intents and purposes, guys, gifted in networking, and she was able to use these tools. The black and white, rubber meets the road, and tax professional shows up and confirms, yeah. So listen, Chiquita, your MLM isn't as profitable because she started focusing on the social media management piece, which was, that makes sense. However, at this time, social media management wasn't generating as much cash flow either. So there's this challenge where she's now transitioning between one business to another, and neither of them are successful yet. Or sorry, one was, but as she shifted to what she was really enjoying and what she had a knack for doing, by leaving that one to come to this one, Taxman shows up and says, yo, this ain't really working out for you. Here's the crisis question. She had to ask herself, is she really qualified to be a social media manager? She was working the MLM thing, and that was working very well. But then she transitions to something that other people, she had clients, in a sense, kind of waiting at the door for something that right now doesn't seem as if it's making money. And so she asks herself, how can this be my business if I'm not making any money from it? And it really ties back to the backstory question, the idea of being, the declaration of being a business owner. She has to ask herself, do I still have what it takes to be a business owner? If neither of the ventures that I now have are generating any income, but my full time is, does this mean that I stay with the full time? If my whole perspective is about stability and security, I have a family now. Maybe not. We don't know. But what we do know is that there is a climax that hits. This is the final showdown. This is how she gets to answer those questions that we didn't know 2.5 seconds ago. There's an older gentleman who asks her one day at a marketing event or at a networking event. I just find it so apropos. It's just so appropriate that this is where it happens. It happens where this midpoint, where she's proactively showing up and connecting with people. You now have a person. She now has a person who's telling her in her sweet spot in the networking event, asks her, so what year are you going to make the leap? When are you going to make the jump? Because at some point, you're going to have to make the jump because you know your stuff. In essence, he answers the question for her, but it's not for him to answer the question. She needs to come to that realization herself. And so what Shequita does is she has a conversation with herself, and she started planning strategically to transition fully into social media management. But it started with believing that she had what it took. She had to do some self-evaluation, assessing her entire financial landscape, life at home, life outside of home, etc., to determine when and how to make a successful transition. Guys, not all the time when somebody says, I'm all in, I got to do this. No. There's some pieces that are happening in between. And I like the fact that what Chiquita's done is given us an inside look into what that meant. That meant that she had to map stuff out. She says that she took out the calculator. She took out the pen and paper, and she started to look at it from a practical standpoint. Okay, I'm going to make this jump, but what is that going to look like? We call that counting the cost. So what does that mean for today, guys? Well, her realization is she now has the clientele, and she's continuing to grow business. Now, even though she has been in this full-time business of social media management officially for 2 weeks, she's been doing this for a while, y'all. So it's been growing. But for her to really say, this is what I'm going to do, she did it this year, 2021, post the height. I don't even know, Lord, please, let's let it be the height of the pandemic because it's coming. But her confidence has increased. She consistently has showed up on live streams to overcome her fear of incompetency. She's doing what it takes to live out the dream, and more so the declaration that she's going to be a business owner. Because, Shequita, you are. That is your story. Yes. Now that we've gotten that done, 5 principles, 5 life lessons, applications. What can you, or what have you already pulled from your own narrative that you want to share with individuals? Universal principles, central themes where they can put these things into action. If they don't resonate with your story specifically, they can at least resonate with these principles. Let's start with the first one.
I would say the first one should be like a declaration of what it is that you're going to do.
Mm.
So, or some would say claiming it, what it
Mm.
is that you're going to do. Because I think that's part of the process of you acknowledging something and saying, you know what, this is me, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I would say declaring what you're going to do or claim it. Um,
Okay. That's good.
that's definitely something that you need to do.
Okay.
Um, and the next one I would say is to work on it, right? Even though you declared it, right? Sometimes people declare like, oh, I'm gonna do this, that, and the other, and they never do anything about it, right? But they still are claiming it. Okay, well, you got to do a little bit of work, right? Work on what it is that you say you're gonna do. Um, hmm. Ah, man, the next one. Mm, mm. You know what? Even though you've claimed it and you're going to work on it, you need to make sure that that it's the right thing for you to do. Um, Sometimes we claim stuff that may not be for us. Like I am a teacher, but that didn't mean I was going to go to school to be a teacher. So, um, but I still teach. That's still ingrained in me. But I just go to school to be a teacher.
Right.
But
Ooh. So can we say this? Maybe we say explore different ways to work on it.
you declare. I like that one. I like that one better.
Number 4.
Oh, oof. It's hard figuring out that.
You know?
My goodness. Definitely prayer, right? Prayer works. Pray on it, right? Even though you've declared it, you've claimed it, you've explored different ways, definitely pray on it, right?
Mm-hmm. I like this. I like what you're doing, right? So declare it,
Uh-huh.
work it, explore it, pray on it. Okay.
The last one, right? Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to, and I'm going to make sure that we kind of have this theme here because I love this theme. So, guys, here are the 5 lessons. Declare what you want to do. Right? You've got to claim it. You have to speak it. All right. Write it down, but you have to articulate what it is that you want to do. But then you have to work on what you declared. Now that's separate from just the do it. Here it is where the working is like the improvement, the preparation, the things that's necessary for you to actually get it done. And so maybe we put here, let's just say, maybe we say prepare for it.
Right. That's good.
And then after, part of the preparation is to explore that there are different ways to do the thing. There's more than one way to do the thing. And I love the fact that Shequita, you said that, listen, I'm a teacher, but I'm not in the classroom. That will probably, for a lot of people, free them from feeling as if, well, just because I want to help people or heal people doesn't mean that you can only do that through being a medical doctor or psychologist. There's so many other ways to heal individuals. Okay. And then you said, pray on it. There is an existential part of this entire process that is beyond you. And I love the fact that you're saying, listen, the it at this point is tied to calling, right? It's tied to purpose. And so we need to not just say, this is what I'm going to do. But now it's like, okay, but is this really what I should do?
Right.
And not only that, but give me the power to be able to move forward and to, last one, do it. Execute.
Yes.
You can only pray so much. You can only explore so much. You can only prepare so much. Eventually, you're just going to have to just do the thing.
Exactly.
Shequita, this was great. I don't know what you were concerned about. I have no idea what you but this is an amazing story. And going through this, yet again, it's inspiring. You have a powerful story. And so I just want to thank you so much for just taking the time and just being transparent and vulnerable to share with us, not just from your childhood, but some of the challenges that you had with working this thing out, and even to letting us know, hey, listen, before we go, let people know where they can find you. I will pull up your thing one more time. I will pull up your your website. But is there anywhere else that you need, or you want people to, anything else you want them to know, maybe what you're working on, or just what do you want these people to know about
You
your new
know,
business?
I will eventually host a workshop. Not sure if it's going to be virtual or in person or dual, at the same time. I would love to do that. But you can find me on all social media platforms, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Clubhouse under my name. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing. I'm really looking forward to hosting a workshop. So I really, really do want to do that. So I'll just try to figure out when exactly, because I love in person, but I do understand that sometimes you have people that are not here in Virginia. So I want to be able to
Yeah.
accommodate people that's not local as well. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Shequita, this was great. Stay on. We'll chop it
Okay.
up just for a little bit more. But for
Okay.
everybody else, if you are just catching this thing, as soon as I end this broadcast, go back and watch it, or at least save it and just go through yet another narrative, another founder story where Shequita is explaining and just sharing how it is she got to where she got to. And you'd be surprised. A lot of your stories are the same, and you're probably wondering, I don't know, I'm not sure if I have what it takes, or my circumstances might be different. Listen, y'all, this is like our 12th one. Y'all ain't got no excuse. We ended this broadcast. We'll see y'all in the next one.